Electrons on more gravity. Let's play chess. Sorry, folks. Had to take a bit of a timeout there. Okay, gonna review this game. The HVAC unit will quiet itself in a minute or so. Things to notice: the game wasn't all too accurate. It was mostly a tactical struggle, so sometimes, most often, when there's a tactical struggle between two human players and the computer evaluates, the computer is able to find many uh, mistakes, inaccuracies, or misses or blunders. This wasn't all so bad. There are a lot of inaccuracies for me, and not one but two blunders for my opponent. So, this is what the computer's reacting to when it calculates accuracy here. And of course, not only that, but also what's the other key ingredient. Pause your videos if you want to guess. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Total numbers of moves played in the game is also a very important factor. One blunder in a 12 move game is a lot worse than one blunder in a 62 move game. Okay, that's we think about that. Oh yeah, that's obvious, but that's the other ingredient in determining accuracy, or one of the other most important ingredients. So let's get on with this. Let's go over this game in more detail. We have Queen's Gambit, classical Queen's Gambit in the Slav defense. And my opponent played Queen to A4. She's going to prove maybe a little bit vulnerable this game. I don't recall. I'll try to get some tempi in my favor by attacking my opponent's queen where she has to move. But my piece gets off the back rank in doing so, and then it becomes my move anyway. It's the thing to do if your opponent brings her they queen out early. One idea is to try to attack the queen. It doesn't quite work here, which is why my opponent chose Queen A4. But if it works, attack that queen. Make sure that your attacking piece is protected, and you might become more developed than your opponent, and have an advantage in that way, and mostly in mobility. Knight D3, Knight C3. Pawn captures. This was a strange move, I have to say, considering pawn to B5. Mostly the pawn advances, and that's great, gathering space on the queen side, but the pawn at C6 is protected, and protected only by this one knight here on the back rank, and as long as he stays there's opportunities along the long diagonal. So this was a feisty move by black. I'm glad to see that Torch agrees with it, because I thought it was a feisty and good move. We're gonna get these pawns on the queen side rolling, maybe pawn to A5 at some point, and black's gonna castle king side all day anyway. So a little space or air, however you term it, on the queen side doesn't bother the black monarch, black king. Like I said, pawn to A5, just gathering space, making way. The main idea here is that the queen on D3 might be vulnerable to bishop A6, so I can develop and keep an attack in mind. But bishop A6 isn't good until A5 has been played, and then the bishop is bolstered or protected by at least the A8 rook and the B8 knight. If it's otherwise just the knight, then that knight is again doing. He's at risk of being overworked by protecting C6 and A6, and not only that, he's blocking in his countrymen, his fellow countrymen, or a member of his same forces and in the same battle. The A8 rook. How's the A8 rook going to develop if the pawn's here on A7 and the knight is doing all this heavy work here? So in that way, positionally, pawn to A5 is the way to go. bishop g5 develops a piece, and bishop a6 gets that potential shot against the white queen in order. This is now not just a placement and a good positional move. Also, we're threatening to win material with pawn to b4. So my opponent steps out of that, and I follow what's called make the same move anyway. This is still the move that would have gathered or garnished us material, but this time it does not, because my opponent has wisely moved to f3 before the discovered attack. So it'll just, each here they'll just have to move the knight from c3 somewhere else. Knight a4. Look, this is a great move. I mean, it's the only good move, and my opponent found it. As you can see here, these other moves are quite a bit worse. So knight to a4, when your opponent's only good move is just to save himself, to barely stay, to be clinging to what's left of the game, that means that opponent is under a lot of pressure. You're putting your opponent under a lot of pressure to find the one move that keeps things sometimes barely together. Here I messed up. Knight to d7. Right. So this, the pawn on c6. Did I mess up? I kind of knew this was going to happen. Yeah. No, I didn't quite mess up all that directly. I'm saying that my c6 pawn isn't that important to me for knight to d7 to be a miss. Not yet, anyway. Okay, see, so we do this dance. My opponent collects the pawn, and I sort of offer a trade here, because part of knight to d7 was, if there is a trade here, black stands better after rook takes c8, owning a very strong and important, almost central file. All right, and my opponent didn't want that, so he moved back, and now we're at just about even, a dynamic, even game. This would be with black to move. This would be an interesting game to play with and against your friends. This particular position, what moves work, what moves don't work. For starters, this is visible, so maybe that's not. I'm not moving it away, but there's some options, various options for black. Well, the second best option is almost half a pawn worse than the best, so I don't know, maybe. The point is, once in a while you find a position that it's not a famous position, but with white to move or with black to move, it's kind of a dynamic and even position. This position is quite dynamic. There's no symmetry, or hardly any symmetry, in this position. But it's kind of like an interesting. I don't know. That came to me, and I thought I'd suggest it. Now, bishop b7, establishing the bishop on the long diagonal is a good move here. e6 had to come at some point. I guess I could have tried along the fiend shadow bishop on g7, and then maybe had an excellent, maybe spawn a very powerful bishop. It's probably not bad. Let's see what Torch says, that instead of e6, black can play bishop e4, kind of boot white's queen around. I think Torch is right. Yeah, okay. Well, I played e6, and bishop for knight swap. Now it looks like I'm in some kind of conundrum. As per the game, knight to b6, forking the queen and rook. I'll lose the exchange. So I thought, well, might as well make the best of it and lose the exchange, but gain a battery. As they are positioned here, as well as just last move. Black has a battery on the A8H1 diagonal. Pawn to B3. What am I doing? Yep. Pawn to B3 is frankly another move that demonstrates that I've upped my game from 3 years ago or 5 years ago quite a bit. This kind of move, yours truly would not have ever thought about as an important move until recently. Pawn to B3 is mostly for the purpose of bishop to B4 check and get the white king moving around, even if it's blocked by the knight. And black is now positioned very aggressively. It's the best move, and it's not an obvious move, so I feel good about B3. We play bishop to B4 check, king to D1, destroys the white king's opportunities to castle. That's it. No castling for white. Not this game. I thought I'd threaten on F2, fork. A very serious fork has to be addressed by white. And then we get our castle in for a nice and safe king. Right, so knight to G2 is the move here. Pulling the queen off of her diagonal from C1 to H6. And it's likely that black can get an attack going. Probably as per queen takes B3. I think that's what I played in the game. No? Okay, right here. Queen takes B3 is strong. And here I close this out, I think, correctly. Mate in 5. You know, the interesting thing, I don't think I lost the. I don't think I lost track of the mate. I can't. I just had it. I just had an alternate. A bit. I think I'm chasing a mate that's just a bit quicker than how I played. How did we play how did this go in the game itself, George? Very similar. Alright. Well, the moves were green, so I'm okay with that. I want to check to see if more gravity lost the force at any point. Keep up with the force, don't stop. Okay, I didn't. So this is good. Alright, like I said, folks, I was very pleased with how I played this game. So in the game before it, pretty much got this. Yeah, I insisted on a threefold repetition because I was worse off. I was doing poorly in material and other ways, so I was able to escape with a draw. All right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Have a great night.